I think that a lot of people who are brought up in these environments that are taking these religious texts, these sacred texts, out of context, who have misinterpreted them or misapplying them, and are sort of following this nebulous group analysis that tends to get queered by the interests of the ones who are in control. I think that those groups are the most problematic. My mother and father were probably the first people in my community to get a divorce. And so from the nun's perspective, and I didn't realize it at the time, I was already being discriminated against because my mother was sort of the spawn of Satan with respect to the nun's analysis, because not only did she get some and give it away, but she got some more and they had none. Looking at it from that perspective, it's just amazing to see the kinds of sociopathic, psychologically malformed, and completely dysfunctional mechanisms that seem to afflict our society. Here in the United States, it's no longer legal, I believe, for a educational institution to physically discipline a child. When I was growing up, it was commonplace, and I was beaten by these religious people several times from the time when I first entered a Baptist daycare. And looking back on that situation, it's very clear that the reason that I was being disciplined is a sort of lack of obedience, because I wasn't paying the nun enough attention. And I don't think that they could grasp that what was going on in my head might be more interesting than what they were saying. And these types of situations seem to just get worse for me. And, hence I mentioned my parents are atheists. And I think this sort of thing is really seriously problematic. But those same people were very, very taken aback when one day I got called into the office at my grade school. And I thought that I was in trouble, and I thought that I was probably going to be beaten again. But instead, the principal gave me a piece of candy because I had scored so well on one of the standardized tests. And this is actually the second time this had happened. The first, we had 2 batteries of what's called the comprehensive test of basic skills in grade school. And after I scored really well the first battery, they were picking on me because I was such an underperformer. They used the fact that I'd scored well on the test to sort of goad me because I wasn't meeting their expectations about how and what I should be doing. And the fact that I didn't want to listen to them when they were saying certain things, and that, I was not going along with a lot of the stuff that they were doing, was a problem. They would punish me, and I would do it anyway. And I think that if they would have had a way to accuse me of cheating on those tests, they would have done it. And so after a while, I started to question whether it was even a good idea to try to score well on these tests. I look back on this in sort of serious contempt, because one of the most ironic scores on the test was my reading comprehension. And the fact that they were following this 2,000-year-old book, that they didn't even understand how to read, at this point in my life, just baffles me. It just baffles me that these people who were abusing me because I was unobedient to them, didn't even understand how to read in my world. And if you look at the translations of the Vedas, just for example, because I've looked at several different translations directly from Sanskrit to English, just the ones that directly translate from Sanskrit to English, the translations are completely different depending on who translated it. And so those translations, if you think about the pathology of those translations for some of the older books, the meanings are so different, and you almost have to learn the original language in the context of the history of the language to be able to read it properly. It's almost what you have to do to be able to read that properly. And so when someone pulls out the Bible and says, God says this, somebody here on YouTube had made a joke about if you want a bus seat all to your own, get on the bus wearing a T-shirt that says "Let's talk about Jesus," and the person said that unfortunately sometimes that backfires, and so I guess we'll see where this goes.